Welcome to Sports News. Super Falcons forward Azizat Oshoala admits defending champions will miss captain Evelyn Nwaboku, who was dropped from the team's final squad owing to injury. Nwaboku, who captained the country's senior women's team to win the African women's title in Namibia in 2014, suffered a leg injury 2 days after joining the team last week. The team has arrived in Cameroon, and the former BBC African Women Player of the Year has given the Nigerians the assurance that they'll make Nigerians proud at the African Women's Cup of Nations. Nigeria will begin their campaign against Mali on Sunday in Limbe. And the indomitable Lionesses coach Eno Ngachu insists Cameroon are hosting to win the African Women's Championship. Cameroon finished as runners-up in the last tournament held in Windhoek, Namibia, and coach Ngachu is hoping that the team can claim victory on home ground. The Lionesses face a tough task, having been drawn in Group A with South Africa, Zimbabwe and Egypt. Cameroon will kick off the tournament with the opening match against Egypt. And elsewhere, world football governing by the FIFA have opened disciplinary cases against England and Scotland after players from both teams wore armbands with poppy emblems during the World Cup qualifying match on Armistice Day. The laws of football prohibit religious, political or personal statements at national team matches. The English and Scottish Federations said before the match at Wembley Stadium that they were prepared to face the consequences of defying FIFA rules. And both countries chose to defy FIFA by wearing poppies on Friday's Group F match to commemorate the armistice that ended World War I. And that's it on Sports News. Back to Gimba with the rest of the news at 10.
President Muhammadu Buhari is back in the country after attending the conference on climate change held in Marrakesh, Morocco. Before leaving Morocco, the president held a meeting with the United States Secretary of State, Mr. John Kerry, where he disclosed that some Nigerians who had corruptly enriched themselves in the past are currently using the stolen funds to wage war against its administration. A statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, says that the president told the United States Secretary of State that corruption was fighting vigorously back, but assures Kerry that the anti-graft war would be won. Ministers today issued the Marrakesh Action Proclamation in Morocco for COP22. The proclamation is a global pledge which reaffirms the commitment of the 196 countries to the implementation of the Paris Agreement. Coming just a week after the US election results, the Marrakesh Action Proclamation reinforces the global will to forge ahead with the necessary and beneficial transitions to low-carbon societies and economies.
Strong international push underway to ensure the Marrakesh Action Proclamation, the climate document under discussion at the UN climate talks in Morocco this week, sends a very clear signal to the world that countries are still committed to climate action in the wake of Donald Trump's shock election victory.
If you look at the heads of state announcements and the ministers' announcements in the high-level segment yesterday, really showing determination and resolve was really important. And I think many of us felt the reassuring presence of John Kerry quite comforting, and he obviously spoke about the urgency and the speed for action, but the fact that it will be the markets that determine this as well.
The mantra that COP22 is the cup of action was underscored by the high-level launch of the 2050 Pathways Platform, an initiative designed to help governments, cities, civil societies and businesses to collaborate in developing national long-term decarbonization plans.
There is a tremendous potential in the radical transformation of the global economy and societies. Those governments, businesses and investors who seize this opportunity, diversify their economies and invest in low-carbon, climate-resilient growth will be the economic powerhouses of the 21st century.
Adaptation finance is on track to be the major issue that could push the climate conference into overtime. Right now, the major elements being discussed are how to handle the adaptation funds and writing the $100 billion Dublin roadmap. The adaptation funds is a product of the Kyoto Protocol, and there are legal technicalities about when and how the adaptation finance will be housed.
The roadmap says doubling, and a lot of developing countries say that's not enough, because what the roadmap currently shows, according to the way the developed countries have calculated, is there's 10 billion for adaptation. If you double that, you get to 20 billion by 2020. Given all projections we have about adaptation needs, and given that that would only be 20% of the 100 billion overall pie, 20 billion is simply inadequate. So a number of developing countries are trying to get strong language on the need that, this doubling is certainly, it's good to increase adaptation funding, but doubling is not enough. We need to scale it up much more aggressively.
Negotiators say the discussions are constructive in terms of the early ratification of Paris Agreement, but it is more about how they successfully land a successful conference of the parties and how they keep this momentum, which is very critical. Ayola Kasim reporting for Channels Television News.
And the main news again, simultaneous protests by supporters of the All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party in Port Harcourt, the River State capital, today resulted in a clash with police. One person was shot and Channels Television's cameraman was assaulted. And that's how it's been on the news at 10 tonight. I want to thank you so much indeed for being a part of it. On behalf of everyone here, have a splendid night rest. Good night.